Hey, hello. I might just go and pick you up. Give me a moment.
Are you two founders?
No, not as exciting as you, mate. Taking this chance to consider the next adventure and leaning into things that you normally wouldn't necessarily lean into, like this.
You might enjoy it, you might get a feel for it.
Well, it's good to be doing something that's a little bit more free and informal.
Yeah, I'm just thinking there must be more fireflies around than we can think of off the top of our head.
I think those behaviours of leaning in and taking chances on people and ideas, that happens a lot more than we know or appreciate.
Surprise you with some of the questions.
Yeah, and she'll definitely screw us up along the way. We come from an environment where everything needs to be polished and perfect, so this isn't very comfortable.
Yeah, really hard to keep to a script when it's like a conversation like this.
What was your first reaction to do this podcast with me?
I think your energy and creativity drew us in, so I was in from the very first ask.
Yeah, I'd say fun. I'm always a believer in doing things different, trying new things, jump off the cliff, so have some fun.
And you're a good salesperson, clearly.
I tried. Have any of you done a podcast interview before in any format?
Yes, I have.
What was it like?
It was People Matters, but it was over Zoom at the time, not live with a great environment as this one. So had a little bit of a tester, teaser.
Similar environment to this, but not called a podcast.
Oh,
so
wow.
I guess podcast's the new trendy language, but media-related interviews, live interviews, so similar format.
Good news is I've never done much podcast interview myself, so it's my new attempt and my second editing attempt, if anything. We're here all to dive in and learn. How did you guys meet?
I've been in Hong Kong 30 years. At the time, we were with the same organisation. Come in!
Come in. Hello. This is definitely fun.
Welcome.
Hello.
We're just in the middle of recording and we need to keep this bit.
Yes. Okay.
As much as we talk about Firefly, we do have an audience flying in. That's how we do things here. Now going back.
Yes. So I think Ewan was based in Beijing at the time, and I was based in Hong Kong. And I think through probably a merger of our businesses, that was our first encounter.
Do you remember the same thing?
I do. My first impression of Jim was his teeth, because he's got perfect teeth for an English person. So I was always wondering what his secret was.
And what was the secret exactly?
Too much rugby when I was young and fighting and broken teeth.
So they're actually fake.
Getting teeth fixed.
Wow. Wow. Fun fact. What was your first impression of Ewan in exchange?
It was probably after working together a little bit, and Ewan was talking earlier about being scripted because he's a perfectionist. One of my favourite quotes is perfect is the enemy of good enough. And here we're talking about fireflies, and I think my attitude is you don't have to be perfect, just be good enough. So both being Englishmen, I think from a rapport and cultural perspective, we're very aligned from values and perspective.
That's why you might be a little bit uncomfortable with the podcast setup, right? Because the questions lists are not perfect. Do you actually have a script on your phone?
No.
Okay, great.
Of
Is
course
that true?
not.
Can you verify?
We'll shut down.
Great. And ever since meeting and interacting on a working basis and also outside of work, how has that changed in terms of the first impression?
From my perspective, meeting Jim and growing up in the organisation with Jim, he's someone that leans in and he's an individual that is willing to collaborate, get things done, work together. So I think over the years we've been able to achieve quite a lot just because of having those characteristics. It's a joy to go into the office or a joy to be with someone personally, professionally when they've got that. And Jim has that in spades and continues to have that in the next adventure.
And if you think about talking again about fireflies and being open-minded, I think Ewan has played a big role in an HR function because that espouses his personality and character, which is one of really inspiring and encouraging people to grow and look inside and try new things. And so working together and me in a professional capacity, Ewan has always been there to encourage me and the organisation as a whole. So I think that's deepened, and in some ways we've been on a bit of a life journey together. So I was fortunate to get sent to Peru about 15 years ago on a find yourself adventure in a corporate capacity. So I was sent there for 4 months with an executive coach. On that journey since then, Ewan has leaned in to support the evolution of Jim Woods and the opening of the flower, as it were, which to a lot of people has been very fuzzy. But Ewan's one of those people that can understand the more important things in life. So I think that's deepened over time. And certainly as we're now looking at our next gig, we're leaning into each other, supporting each other, deepening as we go along.
That's so cool. Were you part of that program, or did you come up with the idea?
No, that was before my time. My first adventure was in New York, and that's when Jim was on that program, which is fantastic. So I did something similar in Washington, D.C., which was an innovation park for ideas, thinking and investment to be the next big thing. So I spent 6 months in Washington doing that, creating ideas, looking at what had business potential and getting investment for that with a group of wonderful top performers from across the world. So similar but slightly different within the same firm.
Just reflecting on my trip to Peru, as it were, I got asked to do it 3 times. I turned it down twice. So again, just for the audience, the benefit of being open-minded, because if someone says, will you go away for 4 months, the opposite side of the world, you're not allowed to talk to your family for 4 months, no emails, you've got to be cut off, this is working with an NGO, experiential. A lot of people will be quite daunted by that, and then you've got to get your family to buy in. So I turned it down twice, and so someone had to pitch to me within the organisation this crazy idea of why it would be a good thing. So again, that was part of the catalyst of me opening up to how powerful it can be to jump off the cliff. Because prior to that, most of us are on the treadmill doing things that society expects, that our parents expect, etc. But that was really a big transformational moment where I was actually almost strong-armed to do it. And then that creates an experience, a massive impact. And then from then on, you maybe are a bit more open to try new things.
I would be interested to know what exactly the third time the sales script was to get you onto the program. Do you remember what it was like to finally get you to say yes?
It wasn't so much the words, it was the tone, I would say. It was a fairly short conversation. It would be a good thing. So I think
happen.
Reading the tea leaves, or when someone has got a bit of influence, I actually have reflected recently, because I respect people that have been offered good things, but they've actually turned them down because of principle, even though it may be negative for their career. So again, it works both ways. For me, I was strong-armed and I went the way of, okay, I'll try it. But I do know through my professional life, there are people that have been offered what I think of exciting promotions, move to Shanghai or move to Beijing or try something different, and they've actually turned it down. So I guess some of it depends on personality, and some of us like change more.
How did you convince your family and say, I'll be going for 4 months? How did that go?
I guess my wife at the time was quite skeptical, the first conversation around what is this thing? And then it was sold to me as working with an NGO, so it was a good thing, working with an NGO. Part of my conversation with her was, this is my career that's financing our family. So 4 months in the scheme of the next 30 years, it's a good thing and it'll go quickly and I'm doing something good. So I think that was the conversation. But like anything, underneath the surface of the veneer of the pitch, there was more to it than that was perhaps more challenging.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
On a note of pitch, I know way back in your early career, you did a really interesting pitch.
Yes, in the UK, you have something called Young Enterprise, where you could set your own company up at school. So whilst at school, I run my own company with a bunch of friends. We had shareholders and investment. And I was invited one day to go to Downing Street to meet Tony Blair to launch this report called the Entrepreneurial Society. So went up to London, had a great day. It was a lot of media coverage. And I got home that night and I just had this moment where I thought, I want to spend some time in Downing Street. So I start typing a letter out, and I remember my mum came in. She says, "What are you doing?" I'm writing to Tony Blair, asking him for an internship. And she's like, "He's not going to respond to you." But sure enough, within 3-4 weeks, his private secretary came back and offered me 6 to 8 weeks as an intern at Downing Street for the summer period. And it was a fantastic experience. So you have this moment in life where you think to yourself, everything's about networks and people. I think to me, the biggest thing was, as an individual that really hadn't ever met me before, getting an ask to become an intern and giving me that chance. Anything's possible. So it's important to lean in. And if you don't ask, you don't get. So live with the uncomfort in the moment to maybe get an opportunity that could change your direction in life.
Do you have any proof that you did work with him?
This is why I had my phone earlier, because it wasn't because of a script. You asked me for a photo.
Yes.
But I was looking at it earlier today, and I had a lot more hair and I was a lot thinner. So I don't really want to show it, but I will.
It'll be a very small photo in front of the camera
Yes,
anyway. It's okay.
We'll try and get a proper picture of that. But yes, it happened, and it was a wonderful experience. And then actually in the 1998 budget, £200 million was set aside around creating closer business and educational links because of the work we'd done. So a wonderful experience for the summer months of 1998.
For those in the audience listening to this, some of them might say that's crazy. Anybody thinking of doing something like that might have that thought that this is way beyond my reach or there's no chance. When you were typing that letter, what do you remember that this might really get his attention or this might really get you across the line?
As a young child at the time and growing up, I just had this innate need to lean in. And if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think as you get older, that sometimes dissipates a little bit. But for me, what was the worst thing that could happen? No response, getting a no. So for me, I was leaning in all of the time, asking for internships. I was very lucky to spend time with different entrepreneurs in the UK through the same thing. And it was just part of who I was. And I've really tried to drive that throughout my career. And I'd encourage anybody to reach out because those ripples come back in good ways. But you need to put yourself out there and be uncomfortable for a moment to get the benefit of what could come back in your direction.
Knowing him for many years, have you heard of the story before?
I have.
What was your reaction?
Exceeded my thinking of Ewan in terms of that person that's open-minded and very encouraging to people and non-judgmental. Ewan's got a very good way and good manner that he can make people feel very comfortable. He's a good listener. So you say crazy things, but he always makes you feel, go for it, why not? So I think that's very much him living his values, an example of who he is.
That's really great. Now that you are on the other side of the table, no longer a student looking for internship, obviously, were there any moments that you've enabled something like that on the mentorship side or like someone on your team?
Yes, I think it's important for all of us to pay back. Having the opportunities that I've had, I try and pay that back as much as possible. So within my immediate team, just the best ideas sometimes come from the most unlikely of places. And there was one day someone pitched to me the importance of well-being, and this was probably about 6 years ago. Can we create an app that would bring well-being to a high level for all of our people? And that effectively started a level of investment around well-being that has become more and more important. So there are many moments where encouraging innovation, encouraging ideas, getting people to pitch and position, even within the corporate environment, anyone's got that power to do it, and we should be encouraging it. And that's something that I think just really improves the team, and it encourages openness, ideas, and ultimately create a more meaningful environment for people. That's something I would certainly take with me and would encourage others to do.
For your next chapter, what are some of the things that you're looking to lean into?
Being really crisp and clear about purpose and authenticity. Having the benefit of having some time off, it enables you to reflect. And I think not enough people do reflection. And for me, where I know I'm at my best is that when I'm more aligned to my values and who I am, my next gig needs to be with a team or a leadership structure or founders that effectively we're more aligned in values, where you can be showing up more consistently each and every day as to who you are, and that, quite frankly, it's something meaningful and serving others in a way that really gets to your core. So for me, now what that is and which industry, I'm actually quite open. It's more about who I'm working with and what we're working on. But yes, it's a great time to reflect and to consider the next adventure, and doing that in a great way. And there's no better place to do that than in Hong Kong.
What are the latest things that you're learning, Jim, as you're also transitioning to your next chapter?
Probably similar to what Ewan said, taking the opportunity to take a pause and reflect on a lot of things in life. Being in the corporate world, we can get wrapped up in corporate expectations, societal expectations, without any moment to really think about our values, our purpose. So we're in a bit of a treadmill, churning out, being more productive. I'm reflecting on life in a deeper way. I always think too many people think too much about the future or the past. My mindset these days is 80% in today, 10% the future, 10% happy memories from the past. So I'm focusing every day on fitness, health, networking with good people. How am I showing up in the world? It reminds me of some of the great mentors have said things like, don't die with your music inside you. Do you want to play small or do you want to play big? And that means different things to different people. But to me, it's how I show up in the world. So I'm trying to focus on that each day and every day. Of course, everyone wakes up and sometimes there are shitty days and storms and other things, but that's just part of life. So I'm trying not to over-plan for the future and be open-minded to what might evolve from meetings such as we had. I mean, it could be opportunities like this that lead to different things. So I think being open-minded is a key part of it.
On that note, I was hosting a workshop with the British Chamber, and I remember Jim couldn't actually attend the workshop. When he sent out the message that he couldn't make it, but let's still connect, what pops up on my mind was, why would he want to attend my workshop? Because I felt like this is almost too much of an experienced person to want to attend my workshop, talking about alternative ways of lending opportunities, networking, meeting people. I thought this guy must have known everything that I was about to say. So I said, yeah, sure, let's connect after the workshop. I can tell you about what I said in the workshop and what people reacted to it as well. And then when I met Jim in the cafe, he knew that I would order a flat white because I put that on my LinkedIn. That worked. Then in that whole conversation, I blabbed on about what I was building with Firefly. He told me about his design thinking courses as part of the CEO program. And then after the conversation, you viewed my LinkedIn profile. So I thought, okay, maybe there's some conversation behind the scene. Let's reach out. That's also how this podcast interview came about. You down for a chat? Let's show people what pitching could really do, what connections can really do.
Something that you mentioned about your core values and what you really live up to, I really resonate deeply with. I always told my friend a lot of times you say yes and then you figure out how, because you cannot plan everything in advance.
Just to supplement that, my kids are early 20s. The different generation have completely different ways of thinking. And Ewan's a lot younger than me, but he's similarly very open-minded and knowledgeable around the changing dynamics and demographics of the workforce. So in a way, I'm terrified of not staying abreast of new trends and new ways of engaging. This whole networking gig, obviously prior to the internet and social media, the way I was brought up, it was much more the physical world. So I guess reaching out to you and that sort of connection is an example of me being cognizant that this is the world we live in and we need to be agile, we need to stay relevant. And I go back to that point about being open-minded around ways to connect. It doesn't have to be physical, it can be virtual. The world is a lot more connected in many ways. So get out of your comfort zone and meet different people, experience different cultures, and we have the platform to do that.
And what you're speaking to is curiosity. I mean, you mentioned the point earlier around, you suppose Jim would reach out to you. Jim's curious. Yeah. He knows that we can all learn from other people, and I think that curiosity is going to become even more important, particularly in the digital world. It's a good reminder for everybody.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
I remember you said, Jim, in the beginning that you always believe perfectionism is the biggest enemy of being good enough. Why is that? Because I thought at work we always have to be better than perfect. So why is being good enough enough?
That's a great question. Certainly high-end companies that are espousing quality, we think of perfection, but I think the reality is things are never perfect. So if you strive for perfection in everything, the cost will be exorbitant. Certainly in a professional services firm, you can keep layering on and trying to get things more perfect. My son broke his leg very seriously on holiday. It was like hanging off in France, and they repaired it in France with a big cast on it. They didn't put pins in. He couldn't fly because he had his whole leg in a cast. We finally got him back to Hong Kong about 8 weeks later, and the doctor in Hong Kong was very critical of what the French had done, because he said in Hong Kong we would have put pins in. I would like to re-break it and refix it, but perfect is the enemy of good. It's good enough. It's good enough. And then I reflected on that in life, and if you're running a business, perfection costs too much money and is too slow.
Yep.
So I think the qualitative element is good enough. It doesn't mean it's second class or it's not quality. I had one time when I was leading the pitch, and the pitch had to be in at 4 p.m. I was still working on it and stressed at 12 noon. A senior mentor said, "Jim, stop. You need to get it in now. It's more important to get it in on time, as it is, than risk being late." So I think that is a mantra for me in everything I do. Sportsman, running, dancing, weight training. Good enough is good enough for me, because it's about having fun in life. And I think perfectionism is forward-looking. It's looking for a goal in the future.
Don't break a leg.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about the leg.
Yeah, that's the whole imagery I have now. And the
Poor Jake's leg.
Yeah.
But it's a great story. It does get across pretty good.
Yeah.
On that note of people side of things, what is the future of work from how you see it?
Good question. With the AI that we have today, there's a lot of concern of people around what does it do to jobs, but it creates roles as well. And it also means that people are going to be doing a lot more purposeful work. So as a Chief People Officer, I'm actually excited about what that means for workforce, workplace, the nature of what work is done, and the environments and the cultures and the meaning that will come through that. I do think it's challenging being a graduate that's graduating today. Where do they go? And the skills they need haven't all been taught yet as they need to within universities, but there is so much good happening around skills and around capabilities. And with digitisation, being curious as a superpower, creativity, problem solving, all of these things are going to be absolutely critical, as is connectivity and human relationships. So I think it's an exciting time, and I think the future of work, it's not really the future, it's very much the present. Organisations do need to be transforming, reimagining, doing things different, opening the minds again, as Jim mentioned earlier, and there are just so much opportunity. So I'm bold and excited about the future, and I think the workforce should as well, provided that they are open, they are curious and willing to upskill and learn, because lives are only going to get better with tech if used properly and with the right guardrails in place. I will stay in the world of people management, because every business success is all driven about people, and I back people, not just ideas. My glass is always half full, not half empty.
What is the difference between half full and half empty?
Half full is optimism.
Okay.
If it's half empty, then it's pessimism.
So is your glass currently half empty or half full? Can't tell.
Actually, so that's half full.
It's a mindset. So it's a bit like a donut. There's a famous quote about how people see the donut. Do you see the hole, or do you actually see the bread? There's two ways of thinking. And so some people tend to be more at the negative end of their mindset. So those people might tend to be a bit more skeptical. But when it goes towards cynicism, I think that's when it's unhealthy. The same with glass half full. It's good to have optimism, but when it goes to an extreme, then you lose all sense of reality. So I think you and I are probably more skewed to the optimism end. For us, that's our natural inclination, trying to show up in a positive way.
But I also think that's not the same as seeing the world through rosy-coloured glasses, because you do need to be practical, you do need to be rational. But I'm more interested about what can be done, how we can solve things, how you can lean in and work together to resolve and do well, rather than all the problems, the challenges in the world. So it's a position of being realistic, but being optimistic around what's possible. But it does need to obviously be practical.
Having been in different leadership roles, one of the arts of leadership, and everyone's a leader that interacts with people, is understanding people. And when you've had the benefit or the opportunity to lead or interact with many different people, you become more attuned to different personality types. So you and I, we've been through many different personality skills training. As an individual, knowing yourself and what your own personality is, appreciating other personality types is really important, because otherwise you compare yourself to other people that are not your personality, and then you're trying to play a role that isn't suited to your inner values and your passion. I think what I've seen, having interviewed thousands of people in my career, and particularly new graduates coming into the workforce, and trying to put myself in the shoes of an employer, there are so many graduates coming out of universities that have got no creative thinking themselves. They come scripted and prepared by their university or by their parents, and they've got no real oomph in terms of their character. So when we talk about Fireflies and the vibe you get and the have a go and have something about you, to me that's really important, and more so now in the world of tech, is if you can't bring the humanness and what you're going to bring to the organisation as an individual, I think it's going to be a struggle. I had so many people come to me, and when I asked them, okay, so what do you do in your spare time? And they say, I've been the chairperson of this or the chair lady of that. And I say, no, that's from your university. What do you like doing? And there are people that say, I like sleeping. You laugh, but so many people say, I like sleeping. So I'm just using that as a bookend to make a point that I would encourage the young generation to realise they have something in themselves. Maybe they haven't found it yet. It's untapped. But the older generation, we value that spark, and it's for you to have the confidence to try new things, and in interviews or pitches to show up as your true self. But I think that requires a bit of inner thinking, because technology is moving so fast. We hear about the impact of Gen AI and ChatGPT and DeepSeek disrupting jobs, and they will disrupt jobs. But as Ewan said, that gives a lot of opportunity for humans, but humans need to adapt and they need to adjust. And the old way of working has gone. And so it's going to be that entrepreneurial spirit that you're bringing something different, a bit edgy. You're able to adapt in different ways and work with different kinds of people. I think that's the world we're already in today. It's not tomorrow. So again, I'd say if Fireflies having that vibe and being willing to pitch in doesn't mean all Fireflies are the same personalities. So I would encourage the audience to reflect on themselves. Do they know themselves relative to others? Because it's not just a static thing. And are they able to compare and contrast themselves with different people, and then know your own value and how you can contribute in different ways?
That's pretty cool. You've been following my content, seems
Yes.
Awesome. As part of this conversation, were there anything new that you learned about the other person, or anything you actually wanted to ask him?
Whenever I see Jim, I learn something new, or there's a new story. But actually, I think something that Jim should share, and I'll ask it in a question way, is that Jim's a great father. He's got 2 wonderful children, and one of his kids, Jake, has set up a new business and he pitched to his father. And I think it'd be good, Jim, if you could just to talk about your experience as a father to a son that actually has a bit of a Firefly moment in him and how you responded to it.
Yeah, oh, I'm tearing up a bit. My son's 23 now, but he, like myself, after university, he just went from university into a job, like so many people do, and probably because his father did and everyone did. But really, he soon found out working for someone else and just in professional services wasn't for him. And he was quite reflective and felt if now's the time, when he's young, he's not got any attachments, he's passionate about fitness and health, he wanted to have a go at doing something himself. As a father, I was a bit shocked. Shocked maybe too extreme, because I'm quite open-minded, but when it's your own son saying, I'm going to quit this really well-paid job that I thought would be on a gravy train to not having to worry about him anymore, and he said, I'm going to try this new thing. He's basically got this idea, and I spent a lot of time talking to him from a commercial perspective to road test that, but basically he's been manufacturing his product in the kitchen at home, and now he's engaged a commercial organisation to develop the industrial menu of ingredients. So he had to pitch to me for some funding to seed him to do that. He took it very seriously. I've dealt with a lot of venture capital, private equity, angel investors. So he basically did a pitch like that to me around getting his money, and I'm full of respect to him. But again, that's part of my open-mindedness to the younger generation. And a few times his granddad is concerned as well and keeps asking, does he really know what he's doing? Should he be looking for other things? But in quite a challenging way, my son said, Dad, now is the only time in my life I've really got the opportunity to do this, and I really want to try it. If I don't take this chance, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. And that was really powerful in shutting me up on being negative. And then as a dad, you've got to back your son or your daughter. That's an example of supporting a new idea and see how it goes.
It takes a bit of time to find the right type of people to believe in something that you're trying to make.
You talk about Firefly, and I think as a Firefly, it's important to protect the spark. As a Firefly, I know it's a burst of energy in short amounts, but it's so important to surround yourself with people and an environment where you're going to continue to thrive, not those that are going to dim your light, to ensure that you know it's a marathon and not a sprint, and you're keeping yourself fresh. You as an individual, as a Firefly in your business, protecting that spark and encouraging others to do the same is just so important. And listening to the story of Jake and Jim's response to that should energise people around never giving up and leaning in.
Any other last question for you before we close out the conversation?
I don't know if you want to comment at all on how did you find your passion? Your example of Tony Blair at a young age and now following your heart and your values, to prospective Fireflies, and we talked about the importance of knowing yourself, that inner journey. Maybe share a little bit about how have you come to introspect and know yourself?
Yeah.
What would you suggest to the audience to do that? Because I know it doesn't, unless you actually consciously think about it, often most people don't have a vocation. Unless you want to be in the church or you know you want to be a nurse or a doctor, but most people don't know what lights their fire.
For me, there's been a few moments in life, and one thing that almost sharpened up my values. When I was an intern in New York City, I had my leaving drinks from the top of the Twin Towers on Sunday the 2nd of September 2001. So that was 9 days before the Twin Towers fell. When that happened, I was in Florida at the time on holiday with my girlfriend, and obviously everyone will remember where they were that day. But for me, that day was a moment whereby I then know the importance of living life well, spending quality time and making moments and memories happen with family and just enjoying life. So as times pass by, making magic moments with family is a critical thing for me. Family is one of my core values. And I think just opportunities to reflect, take time out, really think what is important to you as an individual. And when there's moments, and I've been doing a lot more work recently with a coach around when you get emotional about something, whether it's around surprise or fun or fear or sadness, normally it's driven by one of your core values being in conflict. So over recent months, I've actually been a lot more aware of the importance of doing things properly, family orientation, having fun and humour in what happens. But unfortunately, so many of us are on the hamster wheel of life and we don't actually take time out to smell the roses. And being given time to do that is a luxury. But I think it's just so important to take time for oneself and consider those things that are most important to you, because you'll live a happier, more aligned life in what you do personally and professionally. And we're seeing so much of that now. So Fireflies are those that actually want to get back to purpose, authenticity, what's right for me, which may not be within the corporate environment, and enabling that, discovering that early is great, but it's never too late. So for me, I think values, it's just a really helpful basis, and being clear about what you like in life, what you don't, and then how you align more around that. But I feel I can talk about this for a while because I'm actually studying this stuff at the moment at this juncture in life. And Jim educated me on this from his days in Peru. Obviously, I've got great people around me that continue to give feedback and show the way, but it's all a journey for all of us.
Sounds like we need an episode 2 with somebody else that you can bring onto the show. Let's call it a day here. We need more follow-up conversations from there. Maybe one day when Jake's business takes off, we should interview Jake and you.